But ultimately, people have to set up enough guardrails around the actions. Here, I think we need to provide the guardrails around actions, not just the inputs, but the outputs, sort of a thing. You have to treat AI as a part-time employee. You have to treat them with a similar pattern. If in case the employee does well, it is good for you, or otherwise at least you like bad. You build in the context, and you also have to build in a bridge between the operational process and the digital process to the physical process. Either it is an entrepreneur thinking about a company or the VCs that are looking at a company, were always encouraged to think that they're trying to solve a very specific problem, etc. You have to look at their payroll problem and then solve it, or a HR problem, try to solve it, etc. I think that thinking has to change, because if it is that narrow, repeatable, large market, those opportunities are gone.
Welcome to AI Entanglement, a podcast by LunaGen. I am Prem Talreja, the CEO of LunaGen. And we created this podcast because AI is getting extremely intertwined in our lives, both at work and home. And I thought it'd be worth listening to experts in the industry about what is the beginning stages of AI and where it's going in the future, because it's bound to be making a big impact in our lives as we go on. So let's get started. Our guest today is Ramesh Panuganty, a dear friend of mine, who is an imaginative serial entrepreneur technologist who has built category-leading companies with ideas that came to him at the start of some new changes that were happening in the industry. But I've really been impressed by his thoughtfulness and his entrepreneurial spirit, and has a unique ability to identify the next frontier very early on and then be able to address that into marketable solutions. So it'll be very interesting to hear from Ramesh how AI is impacting our business. He has today he's the founder and CEO of a company called Spanner, which is addressing the area of home owners, property managers, owners problems, and using AI technology. Seems like a boring industry, but very much needed in AI. And prior to that, he was the founder CEO of Mokai, which was acquired by Verint. And Mokai was in the business of business intelligence using AI technology. And then before that, he was the founder of Select IQ, which was acquired by Thinkster in the area of education. And before that, when I got to know him first, was when he was with Draston, which was acquired by Splunk. And this company was pre-AI in the area of building a conversational agent, if you will, or a conversational technology to converse with data before AI. But I've been very impressed by the sequence of his progression as an entrepreneur and what he has achieved in each of his endeavors. So, Ramesh, welcome to our podcast. Good to have you share your views.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for making time. Ramesh, I'd like to ask you that across the various companies that you were involved in, Draston and Conversational Agent, before AI, Mokai in the AI-based business intelligence, and now your current work with property management and with Spanner, what achievements in AI capabilities have most reshaped your understanding of where the product development is heading?
Okay, it's an interesting question. So, talking about product development. So, maybe I'll just rephrase the word product development to overall company development, sort of a scenario. And each of
Sure.
these startups that you have mentioned, thank you for trying to capture those details. Let me try to explain the life of a company or the stages of a company in three fashions. One is market research, in terms of identifying the problem, identifying what needs to be fixed, what is of customer value, etc. Second, the development or the engineering part of the product, building the product, etc. Number three is the go-to-market aspect of it, to actually make sure that the product is used by customers, sold to customers, you get revenues and all of that. So in terms of, say, these three usages of the company, I'm also familiar or have done a lot of research around these companies before I started, because each company is in a completely different domain, business domain, was getting sold to a different buyer persona, etc. Product research is probably the most evolved stages of AI. Say, for example, if say 10 years back, if I had to do a spanner in the property management, an area that is new to me, I have not operated in that space before. I don't know any of the buyer personas. I don't know the challenges, etc. It would have been very hard. I would probably had to interview maybe 50, 60 people who have been living in that space to understand the domain, understand the buyer purchase cycles, and understand how frequently they buy products, when do they upgrade products, buying triggers, or even something like a product feature that is most important to them. It would have taken several months, several years. That is, or that can be done very quickly on the product research side of it, or the business research side of it. And the second part, engineering. Yeah, did you have a question? No.
No, I think
So
you actually shifted this question correctly in the direction of how uh, product discovery is made or how product decision is made. But go ahead and finish your thought.
yeah, on the second part of the product engineering, again, I could use it. And as of now, I see the big users in two or three scenarios. One is the coding part of it. Second is the design part of it, or the user experience, look and feel, appeal. And the number three part of it is the messages, grammar part of it. Say, for example, if I had to put a screen label to convey something, previously it would have taken some time. I had to go back and forth with our documentation person or on what should that label be. It is not as simple as what many people can think. It may be a 3 to 4 letter word. I have to figure out exactly how to convey it in a very short form. All that can be done very quickly. But the entire
Yeah.
other parts of the software engineering, we still have a lot of work to do. And I still do a lot of work, but those three were specifically the product engineering part of it. And then in the go to market part of it, again, we could use AI to do some research and then outreach, customer outbound communications, and all of that. And after that, it is all a mundane job. So once a customer says, I'm interested, I'll take your meeting, then you have the same grunt work that you had to do, what you were doing 10 years ago. Nothing changes.
Very well put, Ramesh, and I really like that. So I'll take this question to the your new venture Spanner, which, as you said very well, that you would have known very little about how that industry would work, other than being a consumer of those services. So, what convinced you to focus on this new venture? Why did you choose this industry?
So, so I, st- sometime maybe in the last 12 months or so is when I actually started thinking about what do I want to do, and then um, I, I, I did want to do one more product, one more business, and at that time I wanted to solve a problem that is actually little harder, little complex, and that was also very ripe for innovation, which probably did not change for many years because AI can help in solving complex problems. I didn't want to solve a very easy problem. I didn't want a question and answer bot for home troubleshooting. I wanted to do a lot more bigger than that. Um, uh, I'm I'm again explaining the scenario of the property management or the home issues, but even before I landed into the domain, I didn't want to build a question and answer sort of a thing because that could have been very easy. I could have built something, launched an app, etc., very easily. But I wanted to solve something that has been more grounded, more blue collar, and more of an opportunity where things did not change in the last 10, 20 years, where even though there were big players, nothing much has changed. And I ended up picking up this domain. And second, there is also an opportunity to integrate with a lot of workflows and make a meaningful difference to consumers. So I wanted to make something that has a B2C angle as well and make an impact, not just be an enterprise sale where, of course, in this business, we try to sell into the large property managers, but I also wanted an angle where there is a consumer angle where we make a meaningful impact either to the tenant or a homeowner or any other resident of a home as well. So hence is the reason why we chose this.
Amazing. It's really interesting how you thoughtfully look for opportunities in this manner. Many of us lack that ability, but you have proven time and again. So I wish you well on Spanner. Now, if you map your entrepreneurial journey, which you've touched on, I see you as a pioneer in looking at these new opportunities, whether it was Select IQ or Mockeye and now Spanner. What Now AI pioneer, what key inflection points stand out as the most transformative in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years
Okay.
from your point of view?
I don't know if I want to call myself as a pioneer, but thank you for saying that. So my first encounter to the word AI, I'm just going back into my college days, post-college days, etc. So I first encountered the word AI in 97. So there was an Indian institute operated by the central government in India called CARE, Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics. I happened to be in Bangalore and I was working there, and I happened to attend these meetups or events that they would do on weekdays, Fridays, etc. And happened to meet with people. The word AI was new to me. I have not studied that or come across that in college days. But that was an institute, and they wanted to use AI to make a meaningful impact to real people. And they wanted to use AI to take the X-ray sort of a vision into people with prosthetic needs and build prosthetics for them at a very, very low cost, almost like 2000 rupees. 2000 rupees, somebody would get a leg support or an ankle support that makes them be able to walk. Many people would have been limping otherwise. And I thought
Wow.
that was a very meaningful session, or meaningful objective for such an organization which was getting funded. And that continued with me. But after that, after my encounter there, I have not come across the word AI, and then have uh, been seeing many other vocabularies in the past, like pattern recognition and all of that, vision recognition, etc. And then again, of course, we started hearing the word AI, say to 2014, 2015 onwards. In Rustin, we did not use any AI. We never claimed AI, even though almost every startup in the 2014 days was claiming to be AI. We didn't actually use it. And in fact, when we presented to one of the top tier VCs in Bay Area, he said ours was the only presentation he saw in the last 5 to 6 months that didn't use the word AI. He was very interested, so that actually led us to have continued conversations with them. But I did use AI, so to now answer the question that you had asked me. So in my company Select Q, I actually used the very first version of BERT to generate the educational content for students. It was generating SAT and ACT prep. Not many people, neither the investors nor the students nor the parents, actually believed that content could be generated. They thought we were generating these questions from a data bank or a database, etc. But we were generating the content. We had a good student traction, and then we had acquisition offer, and then we got acquired, and then we used multiple other variations of that in the later companies. But AI had been evolving, so I have used them from the pre-transformer models to the post-transformer models, and now the rate of innovation has even caught up a lot. Every 2 months now, we have a newer model, newer capabilities, etc. It's an altogether different state of the industry right now.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that you send some very provocative and thoughtful posts on LinkedIn, which I really like and read frequently. And one of the posts that I liked, I'm going to mention 2 or 3 of them actually, but the first one that I would like to address would be that you predict or say that using AI is no longer optional, it's core to every role. What implications does this have on an organization, the team, the skills, and the workflows from that statement that you just made?
Yeah. So we can look at it as two parts: the current capabilities that are available right now, and the capabilities that will continue to be evolved in the future. As of now, I would say I tell myself or I tell my team to use it as an additional buddy or an additional reviewer who can validate every phase of the engineering cycle or the development cycle that we do. Say I write a code and have it verified, reviewed by AI, or I test a code, or and then I have the test results verified by AI, or have the test cases generated by AI, etc. And it is actually possible for use for every stage of the cycle or every role of the company. And it may not be 100% replaceable at any given point at this moment, but I think it may be able to be done later. And that was what I was telling in that LinkedIn post, for people to make use of the technology, make use of the additional copilot sort of use case here. I'm not talking about the Microsoft Copilot. I'm just talking about it as a role that we could imagine, whether it is requirements gathering, analysis, or research, or coding, or user experience, user interaction, customer onboarding. I am not talking so much about the email preparation, email automation, etc. I don't believe in so much of automating all of that. You would do a better job probably in sending up a personal emails to customers. So I don't let AI take over my email inbox, but every other part of the product software development, I think you should use that.
Yeah, good point. And I think in those areas, AI is very useful. And, even if it is, you can always judge it by what its output is. And you can say, well, 80% of it is good, but the rest is not. But at least it helped you in that respect. But now I want to take you to another post of yours, which was very provocative and interesting. You said that AI can shrink your team, but it won't shrink your timeline.
Yeah.
That was an interesting way to put it. That is that coding is only 20% is what you were implying when you're talking about shrinking the development team size. So what is the remaining 80%? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So see, most people think their product or the software engineering is actually coding, which is the wrong perception to have. Meaning, even otherwise, you see educational institutes or the coding tests, white coding, etc. Coding is given a lot more importance than what it actually deserves. Say, for example, you don't see anyone that says that I'm good in software engineering. No, nobody says that because they don't even think of software engineering as a technology, and they think, oh, okay, I'm good in Python programming or I'm good in Java programming, but they need to be good in software engineering first. So software engineering is the true engineering, whether you call it as software engineering or computer engineering or computer science, etc. So there is a bigger picture. Programming is only one part of it. And in any company, say whether it is a startup or you take a big company, beyond the programming aspect, you have to make sure that you comprehend the product. You understand the requirements, and you have to say a lot of things, and you have to say no to a lot of things in any software development rather than saying yes. And you have to say no to these set of users. You have to say no to these set of requirements. You have to say no to these set of usage patterns or stress test requirements. Say, as in somebody building a bridge or a building, they would have to capture a lot of requirements. I'm talking about that. You have to design something for this. So there is a design aspect, and then there is a coding aspect, and then there is a software verification process. I'm not undermining it as testing. You have to make sure that it works in the particular customer scenarios. It is load
Yeah.
tested, stress tested, and then you have to sell it. Selling is a big thing. So if in case you don't sell it, nobody will use the product. So I'm not undermining that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. I think that puts the role of AI in its right place and the role of our own experiences in their place, because nothing can supplant our experience, our ability, and our conversation face to face with the customer. And what we
Yeah.
say and we communicate is what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. So, and there was another one that you said that, and this relates to, you can say, risk and also the unpredictability of AI, which is, we use the word, it's not deterministic, it's probabilistic, it has hallucinations, things of that nature. But I think the point you were making in this was that AI performance can shift overnight without your knowing it. The levels change. And so what were you referring to there, or what are you trying to point out as a word of caution, or is it a given fact?
So if Okay, so basically, question on this is more of a first principles thinking. What do you think of AI as? Do you think of it as a person, or do you think of it as a software? Okay, so say assume if you're thinking of it as a person, and the I don't want you to depend, or I don't want you to assume that the same level of intelligence is going to come on every day. And the model responses can vary by the amount of memory that the infrastructure provider is going to allocate, or It is about, say, how much of time it is going to spend on your task and how much of iterations that they are going to run on your task. So answer, hypothesis, validations, etc. So the outcome can vary a lot. Say today you may be using Opus 4.6, 4.7, etc. But then in the LinkedIn blog that I had written, I also shared the Anthropic's own observations that they had. And they also had some bugs. So apart from the parameters that they were talking about, they were trying to say manage their load on production, but they also had bugs. Don't make any assumptions. So you also have to manage from this. You have to say, for example, as part of your software engineering, say if you are making decisions to customers, you have to make sure that those decisions are accurate and authentic and then correct before you pass on. Don't just depend on the LLM. You have to make sure that you have the sufficient guardrails and everything else that is set up in this process.
Thank you. That's a good explanation there. And I also wanted to ask you that leading more towards the security, threat surface, the good and bad aspects of AI. But as AI systems take on more cognitive workloads, do you see that the enterprise threat surface or threats are increasing, especially when AI becomes both an asset and as an attack vector itself?
And
I mean,
asset and
that AI could uncover
okay.
certain threats in itself. By itself, it would
Okay.
help you to uncover threats, but then it's also an attack vector because of the LLMs and the prompt engineering and things like that.
Okay. So I see two parts to this question. So number one is uncovering the new surface, right? So AI uncovering the new surface is actually very important. And let me also explain what exactly is the surface that you're talking about. Say in a traditional SaaS business, so somebody can do a denial of service sort of an attack and then shut it down. So getting shut down or a DOS attack is probably your surface, okay, or maybe one of the surfaces. Here, what might happen is that this service can still be running, but it can be misled to answer in a different way. So your attack surface also has to be considering newer parameters, newer possibilities of what could be happening. Say, for example, I'm speaking at a public event. I assume I'm on the stage, and somebody can start misleading me first. Okay, so somebody can start asking two or three questions that set me in a wrong direction, and then they can break me. So that is what that can happen with AI. So getting misled is something that we have to be very worried of. And then on the second part is I think you have to talk about or understand about being faster, cheaper, economics part of it, and you have to make sure that you don't continue to incur the costs, etc. Also, so the security is not just about the outcome predictions. You have to worry about everything else on your business model as well. But ultimately, people have to set up enough guardrails around the actions that the AI is performing. Traditionally, we think of providing guardrails about access. Who has access to it? What entitlements and all the guardrails around inputs. Here, I think we need to provide the guardrails around actions, not just the inputs, but the outputs, sort of a thing. But bottom line, I think the answer to the question, if I have to state that in one liner, you have to treat AI as a part-time employee, not as a full-time employee, not as intelligent. So you assume that somebody is working there as part-time, is not responsible for the job all the time. He's only there as a substitute. The way you treat that employee in terms of making sure that he may be answering this question with a full commitment or a part-time commitment or just like a temporary staff come and go. You have to treat them with a similar pattern. If in case the employee does well, it is good for you, or otherwise at least you are prepared.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good way to put it, that the part time employee has certain restricted privileges. They're
Yeah.
going through a trial period, if you will, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a very well way to articulate that. I'm going to summarize one or two questions in one way, which is the idea around what you believe will be the new attacks that the enterprises should be prepared for and how should they defend against them. And then in general would be with data and the physical operations, where do you see the biggest blind spots in AI security that will
Yeah.
emerge? It's a combined question
Okay.
there about attacks, blind spots, and data and operations. Yeah.
I have started telling my spanner team currently to use AI as your PR team. Say in my previous companies, I did have a PR person or a PR team who talks about us, etc. And traditionally, what happens is that these PR persons typically report to the highest chain of command. So they report into the CEO directly, and this PR person would be trained on what to say, what not to say, when to engage, when to disengage, etc. You have to do the same thing here. Coming back to the specifics on AI, the security concerns or the security thing that at least I would be prepared to do or be prepared for prompt injection. Assume that people are trying to break your system by various prompt injection. They can generate these prompts with LLMs, copy paste, and then send it via APIs or any other means. But it is not the traditional hijacking techniques, but this prompt injection with a goal to manipulate or to ignore the rules. Say you have set a set of rules or guardrails to protect your system, but then these prompts are posing that they desperately need the LLM to bypass that and then come around and still help them answer them, and they try to manipulate it is a very normal case even with PR. So somebody can pose as a journalist and they could be coming from a competition, they could be coming to hurt you intentionally from other competitors, etc. And you need to be aware of this manipulative techniques. So that can happen most with AI. Second is the data poisoning. Data poisoning, so people can ask all kinds of wrong things and say that, hey, I think this is correct. So should it not be done like this? So you never engage the engagement that the users are doing as a training data. Not your training data has to be separate, and you don't mix your training data with the usage data. Keep those two things aside, because if you mix that, I think that is an easy way to fall for prey.
Yeah.
So keep that aside. And impersonalization can be a big security factor as well. Somebody can impersonate you or impersonate somebody else. So apart from having your access controls, etc., try to focus more on the decisions that the software is doing and what actions it is doing.
Awesome. Awesome way to put it. I mean, when your comments about PR, public relations, was a good one. That when I, coming from marketing background, when I was trained on PR, they would say, Prem, just remember that the interview with the press person does not end when they said, okay, goodbye. It never, because even as you're walking out the door, they can ask you a personal question, which becomes information, so
Yeah.
be careful when you consider it is done. So you're right. Yeah. Okay. My last question to you, back to your entrepreneurial journey and ability, which I really admire, is Ramesh, as an entrepreneur, where and how do you see that we at large can leverage AI for the next wave of opportunities and problems? Are they the only areas where is AI going to be the leading force for new opportunities, or are there other opportunities? Answer it whichever way you like.
Yeah. So traditionally, when let me give a few thoughts as an entrepreneur of trying to start a new company. Whether it is an entrepreneur thinking about a company or the VCs that are looking at a company, were always encouraged to think that they're trying to solve a very specific problem with a very large market size. So solving a problem, say like a HR problem, payroll problem for a particular domain, for a particular the size of the customer, etc. You have to look at their payroll problem and then solve it, or a HR problem, try to solve it, etc. I think that thinking has to change, because if it is that narrow, repeatable, large market, those opportunities are gone, because those opportunities are either eaten away by the language model providers. So Anthropic can release, or OpenAI can release a vertical solution. Now, I would think an entrepreneur has to solve a bigger, so I'm talking about the breadth and I'm also talking about the depth. So you have to scale up little bit more, because then it is difficult to follow, difficult to imitate for anybody else, and then it is not a very straightforward solution for somebody else to launch. So think of it as AI in large operational workflows. And also there is some real context. So it heavily depends on the context, very specific needs. Say, for example, in Spanner, we have a lot of integrations into the workflows, whether it is the workflows of the property manager, service provider, residents, etc. And it is also contextual for that home. Every home is independent. Every home is has its own unique characteristics. We don't make any assumptions. I'm not going to pass on a particular customer queries to Gemini or Claude and then pass on the response. So there is a lot of context that is applied. You build in the context, and you also have to build in a bridge between the operational process and the digital process to the physical process. If in case you can do all of them, or at least two of these three things, I think there is a big opportunity that can be uncovered with the use of AI. And some of these problems could not have been solvable otherwise in the past. And I think now there is an opportunity to solve a lot more complex problems.
And do you think that the solution can be built at a lower cost than it was, say, a few years ago?
Yes, from a cost standpoint, I think it can definitely come down. Like I mentioned, I don't think you can bring the timeline. Timeline may still take 12 months, 18 months, whatever it used to take earlier, but the cost can be lower.
Yeah. And then the go to market aspect of it that you touched on earlier, which is very complex. Do you think that there's more likelihood for the larger companies to acquire your idea or your implementation more so than building a category or a large company of your own?
I don't think that changes specifically because of AI. It is always about go to market, and then sometimes it can be about product alignment, team alignment, or a strategic gap that somebody can fill in for a large enterprise. That could remain the same.
Very well. Ramesh, I'm going to close. Is there any last comments you want to make?
No, I'm good. Yeah. Thank you for giving me an opportunity again, and I wish good luck. Say for any entrepreneur who is looking to build the products, there is no better time than ever. So do start it. Thank you.